Yeah, sorry, I just needed to... It's just basic human stuff, right? I mean, scrolling back, wait, what's happening here? Right, fucking... Alright, Alexa, you're right on. Fucking... God, you've posted loads of shit, fucking hell. I must have been talking for ages, shit. Do you feel lost sometimes? No. Wait, do you have a favourite record you've made? No. I mean, every day, yeah, maybe a little, like a daily favourite, you know what I mean? Like, today I really like this. It depends mood, right? So, depends on what mood I'm in. So, no, basically. That's like the favourite colour question. I can't answer questions like that, they're weird. Were you playing France soon? Maybe, don't know. Had a Paris offer. Might do something with GRM, actually, don't know. Mari Hamada, yeah, right, that, honestly, we did that track, we sent it off to him, because they'd sent us the vocal for the Mari Hamada thing, and it was a bit rough around the edges, but it was good. So we'd done the track around the vocal and then sent it to him, and then they said, oh no, we want to re-record the vocal, that was just a guide track. And I was gutted because I'd mixed it and all that. So then they did the mix and they put the vocal really loud and put a load of reverb on it, and it just sounded weird. It was not at all the way that it sounded originally. I think the original's much nicer, but it's not out there. So whenever someone says, oh, I really like that, I always feel a bit weird because it doesn't feel like it's totally my work. But, you know, anyway. Can I please ask if the sets will share a common theme through to the Barbican set? I don't know, because that's in October. So probably, yeah, I mean, they will share elements. They probably, I mean, in all likelihood, it'll be mostly similar material. But there's a bunch of material that's not aired yet. That's because we've had too long to work on this fucking set, right? So my part of the set is, I don't know, like 3.5 hours of stuff. So I don't know how much of it we'll end up using. Hopefully some more than... Anyway. Do you feel lost sometimes opening old max patches? No, I don't comment my code. The patches are their own comment. I can tell looking at it what's going to happen. Sometimes I need to stare at it for 5 minutes to figure out exactly what's going to happen, but I can usually just tell looking at it. I don't make spaghetti patches anymore. I'm much more organised. You've got to be, really, if you want to get a lot of stuff done. But I don't comment it. I'm really shit at not commenting code. I don't say, oh, this bit's doing this, because I quite often don't think in that way. So I just have to look at the signal path and figure it out. Control, whatever. Do you ever look through Autechre? I've been on Reddit for a long time. Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it. I'll say that. I could see the last 20 minutes of your set, but kudos to the live set, you're amazing. Thanks, guys. Is there a time of day when you feel most creative? I used to be a real night guy. I used to just work at nights, you know. I didn't like the hustle and bustle getting in the way of my mindset, all that stuff. But not at all anymore. I'll get up really early and just start working, and I'll just work all day, and then I'll work until I can't really think anymore, and then I'll just watch some crappy TV so that my brain will slow down enough for me to get to sleep, and then I'll sleep. So, real fucking basic. Any TV shows you like watching? You know what? Like, TV shows are weird because they don't fucking resolve. Like, I prefer films because there's an ending. TV shows don't have endings, and usually, even when they do, they're just shit, right? I mean, when was the last TV show you saw that had a good ending? Probably Preacher. Preacher ended pretty well, but a lot of other series just don't. But yeah, I watch loads of shit TV, and it's all shit. It's fucking, like, I like Twin Peaks, you know, but that's kind of obvious, right? I thought Severance was okay. I think Shining Girls is okay. you know, but I'll probably just forget them in another year. I'll forget that I even fucking saw them. So, you know, that's recent stuff. I mean, I don't know older things. I mean, you know, I don't mind The Expanse. It's pretty good. It is what it is. It's a little bit like, yeah, there's something about it that's a bit wrong, but I sort of enjoy it. Like, I quite like it. Yeah, there's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any good TV. I mean, I don't know. You know, Black Mirror's alright. It's a bit fucking miserable, isn't it? But, you know, um, yeah, I don't know. Some things are alright. TV's a bit weird, isn't it? Because it's soaking up all the money, but I don't know if it's producing quality content, really. You know, there isn't art house TV, is there? You know what I mean? There's like art house films, but there's no art house TV, so it's almost like taking all the... There's no sort of interesting things, you know what I mean? Where'd you get your ideas from? That's not a thing. I don't think that's a question. I mean, what is an idea? Tell me what an idea is and I'll answer you. Amazing output over the years. Amber was an inspirational listen when it came out. Thank you. Do you ever create tracks with a particular story in mind, taken from the real world? Yeah, so not taken from the real world, but I do have sometimes I have narratives in mind, but they're quite abstract. They're not, you know, man goes into room, does thing, the thing happens, interaction occurs. You know, they're not like that. They're like feelings of moving through spaces a lot of the time and events taking place, but they're quite kind of abstract. And I don't think I can put it into words very well, and I wouldn't even if I could, because it just, you know, it's too much information for you lot. I think really you should just have the tracks and just figure it out by listening, but it's nice that you have, so thanks for saying that. Have you done many collabs with Soviet France before? Yes, worked with them 3 times or 4 times back in the 90s. Yeah, we'd done gigs with them as guest com, but it was just me and Rob and Soviet France, and that was like a full gig that we did in Newcastle. That was really good. And then we've done other gigs with them where we've played our set and their set, but in between we've sort of mixed the two things, so it becomes like a big blend of stuff. Like, that worked really well. Like, really well. And then there was one time when it didn't work very well. I think Ben didn't like what I was messing around on the RSD10 too much, and he weren't having it. So after the gig, he was like, but I like that about him, because he'll just fucking tell you if you do something shit. So that's, me and Rob are a lot like that. So I've always really liked them too. I think they're really fucking easy to get along with and work with and all that. And it was an honour that they said yes to do that gig. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's been too long, really, because I haven't seen him for at least 10 years. Did you ever use any Dave Smith sequential stuff? No, but, you know, like, I mean, obviously I'm a massive Mantronics fan, and Mantronic was all over the Studio 440, so I've got a lot of love for that way of thinking. And I think the Studio 440 is sort of a little bit of an unsung hero in production terms. People don't talk about it the way they do the MPC and all that, and they probably should. You know, and I was just buying the records, so I had no idea what that was at the time. I just used to buy the records. I've only found out since how it was done. And yeah, I mean, that shit's fucking good. Like, it is really, really good, well-made shit. I know Richard's got a 440 and he's got drum tracks and some other bits. But yeah, I've never owned any of that, so I've just enjoyed music by people who did, so... Have you ever heard of the Wunsch Punch? No, and no. It doesn't matter that you put a troll face, because I can't be trolled by something I don't understand. Do you have access to soundboards from the 2000s or even the Oversteps tour? And can we ever expect to see them? Oversteps, yes, some. I'm just too interested in what I'm doing at the moment to actually get round to putting them out, but you know, maybe. Maybe. Probably. At some point. Relationships advice. Yeah, exactly. Ask me some fucking questions then. So, Alexi. So, please, new live date in Lyon, France, guys. Are you doing alright though, Alexa? Are you doing alright? You can just tell me. Please, new live set that I won't see it for a bit though, because I'm scrolling. Have you seen a new synth music tech thing that's really interested you lately? No. Any more European live dates in the pipe? Have you used the expression evaluator on Goldwave? I don't know what that is. Tell me. Pliffon made with Maxim SP? No. Pliffon was, I think it was MPC. It's Rob's, so you've got to ask him. Someone will open up your tune patches. Is your guys' tech made of B patches, abstractions, random doodles? Is it like a combination of everything? Yeah, I mean, so some stuff it just makes more sense to do in Max than Gen. So like I use Gen Exper for a lot of the kind of bare bones stuff. My oscillators are all Gen Exper, filters, but there's an FM stuff I'll do in there. But like a lot of stuff, it doesn't make any more sense to use Gen Exper than any other way of doing it. I'd prefer patching with cables, if I'm being 100% honest. I like writing code. It's good. It's more efficient for some things, but you know, with branch prediction and everything, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have a ton of functions waiting and a bunch of if statements to call them, because they all get fucking called anyway. So yeah, it's sort of, and a lot of the time it's just so much faster working with cables for me. It's just, and I can see what I've done. Like I can just see it. I can just look at the patch and I know what it's doing. So yeah, it's just more intuitive and faster to work with cables. And I actually prefer patching in outside Gen Exper than I do using Gen Exper, but there are just some things that make more sense to do in Gen Exper, so I use both basically. Yeah. Throughout the years, I've heard a lot of Autechre fans have taken a lot of influence from the production of hip hop. A lot of Autechre. Yeah, I mean, if that's just a typo, yeah, totally. Hip hop production was really the only thing I was interested in the 80s, because I found a lot of other music production too wet, and hip hop was quite often like the sounds were better and there were the drum sounds were better and the production in general was better. It just had the EQ was more me. Like I did things that were similar, like you did bits of sort of industrial music, but the EQ would be like too bright or something, or a bit weird. Like it just didn't have that kind of thump to it. So I've got a particular taste in the way that things should sound, and you know, thankfully that's sort of become more normal now, but at the time it probably wasn't. So if you were to just take a random sampling of like 80s music, that's not really what I was listening to, if you know what I mean. So it's just that that's now more music sounds like what I was listening to back then now, so it probably just seems a bit more normal. But hip hop production these days is a different thing entirely. It's not at all what it was back then. It's just a completely different thing. So is it influential? A bit. I mean, as much as it could be, because there's not much there. So I mean, you know, you're getting into funny things like how something's compressed or how something's quantized, or you know, like how 2 or 3 snares have been layered to get a snare, or it's sort of a little bit more delicate and technical. Like I remember hearing the J-Lib album and thinking like, my god, this sounds expensive. Like it was amazing, but it was a totally different thing to what I'd grown up thinking that it was. But yeah, it became a lot more about refinement in the 2000s, and I think nowadays it's more about grit and kind of atmosphere. So I love Griselda, I love Derringer, I think he's fucking great, and I love Rock Marciano because they're so atmospheric and they're so kind of, they sound so remote and distant and ancient, you know, and that's really appealing. But it isn't really there isn't a lot there that I can take in terms of influence, other than already liking those atmospheres and that kind of ancient, distant feeling that you get from that stuff. So, but yeah, vibey as fuck though, eh? If you ever looked into rapid composition tools like Synfire or Orb Composer, no, I don't know what they are. In your records, there seem to be eras of techniques that give everything a distinct character. Ever think of reintegrating any of that old gear with the new stuff, or is it onwards and forwards only? Yeah, I mean, I tend to do that shit for remixes because it's an opportunity to fart around and do something a bit silly and work with something that I wouldn't normally work with. And so, because it's already been sort of invaded by someone else's ideas, right? Because it's a remix, so, you know, all bets are off at that point. So yeah, I would do for remixes, but I don't tend to do it in my own stuff much, but now and again. But then again, when I use an 808, no one fucking notices. Like, there's an 808 on LC that nobody ever comments on. It's really obvious 808, but it's just got a different production to a lot of modern 808, so you just wouldn't really see it. But you can hear it on Marhide. I mean, I guess that's pretty obvious. Yeah, I mean, occasionally we'll fuck around with something old and do something new with it. Like, there's DMX drum sounds in that first AE Live, the 2015 AE Live stuff's got some DMX drum sounds in, but nobody ever comments on them. But I don't know, to me they're like really obvious. Like, I'll put those things in as reference points and no one ever gets them, so, you know. So yeah, I mean, onwards and forwards only. I don't really do that. I just kind of do things until I get bored with doing them, and then I do something else. And we've never been very, I mean, really, even in the old days, we weren't using modern gear. You know what I mean? Like, in the early 90s, we were using early 80s gear that was cheap. And in the late 90s, we were probably using a lot of early 90s gear. So we've never been very cutting edge in that way. We're not about that, really. But yeah, I tend to use things until I get bored using them, and then use something else. So, you know, yeah, I guess in that way, forwards. Is Max worth checking out if I have next to no coding experience? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I had BBC Basic experience, which was of no fucking use whatsoever using Max. So, yeah, you don't need any. Just dive in. But make sure you kind of get a grasp of the basics. It might help if you've used a little bit of modular gear, because plugging one thing into another is, I mean, with me, it just came from having used hardware, basic hardware. So I didn't even have experience using modular synths. I just came from using basic hardware. But the idea of cabling two things together, and this is outputting this, and this is expecting to receive this and will output this. As long as you understand that, you can do it. It's just like plumbing, you know. It's just, in fact, plumbing's a lot harder than using Max. So, who would be a good fit MC wise? Can I not say? Because I don't want to narrow it down. I already say too many MC names, and it's bad. I mean, obviously, like Keith, I love Keith, but you know, he says some shady shit sometimes. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Like, I'd have to really like it, and I'd have to be able, whoever it is, I'd have to be able to tell him, no, that was shit, mate. Like, what the fuck is that verse? Like, and there's a lot of MCs won't want to fucking hear that at all, right? Because there's a lot of ego in the rap world, you know? No, I mean, we're just as bad, I suppose. Okay, so I can't see the questions he's answering. I'm sorry, fucking hell, I'll read them, but they're years ago now. It's just there's too many, and I'm trying to do as many as I can. But if you want, I'll just fuck all these questions off and just do the more recent ones. They're asked a while back, but he's taking time to answer. No, alright, I'll just do every few. Like, most people just ignore most of the questions, right, and just do the ones they want to do, because they don't like the awkward questions. You don't get that with Autechre. So it's thanks for the Max info. So is each show just the one Max setup with the 3 modules, or are new versions loaded? Yeah, so like those 3 module types are arranged in channels. So like each channel has like, I think 6 slots. Yeah, it has like a sequencer, a synth, and then 4 effects units on every channel, and there's 16 channels, and they're constantly changing. And there are 4 bus channels as well that don't have sequencers. No, sorry, that don't have synths on, but they just have sequencers and effects units. So they have the 4 effects units and the sequencers, and there's 4 of those bus channels, and they can be routed into each other and stuff. So that's it. So in total there are 68 slots. Yeah. Have you looked into touch control surfaces for controlling Macs or live or studio use? A bit. I use the iPad for some stuff. I use multi-touch. Very useful. Use Mirror. Multi-touch is great. It's like totally unexplored, I think. Yeah, anyway. Best stream ever. Damn straight. Have a nice piss, mate. Fuck off. Hang on, was this then? Shit, so this is all pre-piss. I want to know how the stream started, because there's only about 12 people after 3 minutes. Piss memes. Is that it now, or is that what we are now? Piss memes. Can you resend them? Whoever asked about a new album, please don't. Yeah, cavity job. Am I blocked from this chat? For what? Lol. Did he talk about more live dates, Reddit? Demo. God, you piss memeing cunts. Right, wait. Do you create tracks with a particular story in mind, taken from the real world, or otherwise some of your tracks give this impression? Oh wait, so that was ages ago. So I must have scrolled up way too far there. Fuck. Sorry. Shoe bills, I love them. They're fucking mutants, right? They're like weird dinosaur birds. They're like... Are they aggro? I imagine they'd be quite aggro. Like a cassowary or something, you know. I love all them weird birds, honestly. I think they're amazing. Anything a bit like a dinosaur and I'm in there, basically. So yeah, fully. Love shoe bills. Do you like new Mac chip situation? Is it any different to work on compared to old CPU? Yes. So my patch was using about 75-80% towards the end of last year. Or the year before, whenever it was I got it. And then, yeah, I got the M1 and then it was just flying. 30%. Just flying. Just absolutely insane. So there's no turning back now. I'm fucked because I'm filling it up already. Loads of live fizz mod things and things that were a bit, you know, expensive. So yeah, I love it. Just amazing. Kind of a little bit too much, if anything. And the disking out speeds are amazing. The transitions are all super tight. The timing's super tight. All the control rate stuff is super tight. So yeah, I think if you're using Macs and you've got an M1, you're basically living the dream at this point. It's just insane. The drums percussion sounds on under Boac sampled or synthesized. Bit of both, I guess. It was originally a pen going down the side of a radiator. Then, you know, so and then it was taken into recycle, and then it was cut up into bits, and then there was some kind of, I can't remember what I did to it. Yeah, there was some kind of spectral, what did I do to it now? Frequency shifting. So there was frequency shifting on it, and then it was taken into the ASR for the ASRs, and then it's like a sample bank, and then there was all the compression and everything is in the ASR, so you get them transients. Because the compressor inside the ASR is just absolutely nuts. That's the thing that we use to do the Stereolab remix and anything that's like that, where it's like super fat sound, but like the attacks on the sounds are just mentally like tight. A lot of that stuff was ASR, so repping and Sonic always. So do you think you'll get someone else in the Designers Republic to do your graphic designs? I don't know, maybe. I like DR. I get on with Ian. I have to get on with people to work with them. Favourite Depeche Mode 12-inch mix? The 12. So by 12-inch mix, I assume you mean kind of extended versions. Probably get the balance right, combination mix, because that break in the middle, where it's just a little melody and then it kind of comes back in. That's beautiful. Not all films resolve anymore either. Touche, true, correct. Yeah. Yeah, I think people have got, they don't like endings. I don't know what the problem is there, but it's true. I'm just reading. I have met people from The Expanse. No further comment. Okay. Tell me about them, please. You know. I like it. It's nerdy, but I like it. I do like it. I do like The Expanse. It's good. It's nice to see something that fleshed out. You know, there are just a few things I'd want to tighten up if it was my show. You know, but I think they know that, and I get a sense that the fans love it, warts and all. Right. So, because I feel a bit like that. I feel like I need to cut them some slack because at least they're fucking trying. You know what I mean? So. The warp tapes were really good, thank you. Surprising, great quality recordings for their age. Some of them are. The ones that were recorded on 244 are good because the 244, Tascam 244 is just beautiful. And if you're just recording 2 channels onto it, because it runs at double speed, then all the noise is like out of the way, and it's just really good analog sound. It's really surprising you can get sound like that off a cassette, you know. So yeah, all the tracks that were recorded on that thing sound great, and all the stuff that was done straight to normal cassette sounds, well, it is what it is, you know. Did they need much remastering? No, I mean there was no mastering at all. It was just the tracks were taken. Rob did new dubs of a lot of those tracks, which were just literally just getting the line and the levels correct, and then just putting them onto digital and at 24-bit. I think, and so he'd done them quite a while before, like a good 10 years before we did that. I think it was around the time that we were recompiling, because we had to rebuild the Lego Feet thing when we did that, because we didn't have the masters for that, just time, and they'd gone missing, so we had to rebuild that. So the version that Scam released later isn't the same as the version that came out in 91. All the tracks sound different. I mean, we tried to replicate it as close as we could, but it's in the same. So anyway, we had them newer versions, and they're just a bit cleaner. They're just better digital copies. So, but there was no EQ or anything on any of it or anything like that. It was just as is. So, and then just kind of mixed as you know, like mixed together the tracks or whatever, but like not really, there was no mastering or anything. So I think we were just lucky, really. I think when you're not using much equipment, if you're using a very, very basic setup, like just a drum machine through a DJ mixer into a tape deck, you can't really go wrong. You know, it's gonna sound good. That's the beauty of that shit. And we were blessed, really, to grow up at a time where that shit was the only shit we could afford, you know. I think if we'd have had a lot more money and we'd have had bigger studios, you know, like an early Mac maybe, or, you know, things wouldn't have sounded quite so correct now from back then. So we were just sort of lucky not to have any equipment, I think, in a lot of ways. You don't make as many mistakes in your mixing and everything because there's nothing there to mix, you know. So yeah, we were just lucky. Three neurons rubbing together, yeah, exactly. What is it? Tell me what it is. What's an idea? you know. Ooh. Don't think anyone knows. Sounds super moody. You know, not intentionally, no. I mean, we weren't inspired by anything, really. It was just where I was emotionally at the time, I think. So yeah, I probably was feeling a bit moody, I don't know. I'm not talking about why that was. Yeah, I saw the piss comments. Okay. Autechre. Right, so funny that we still can't see his name here. Say his name here. Oh, you can't write my name, can you? Is it still blocked? Oh, fucking hell. I shouldn't have... Yeah, I should have turned all that off. Sorry. I'm on my phone at the moment, so I can't really. I'll do it in a bit, but I'll be off by then, so... What are your thoughts on Sophie and Hyperpop as a genre? I think genres are always weird, but I appreciate that they had to do that in order to carve out a space, you know? I've been there. You do have to do that. It's annoying, and it will fucking come back and bite you in the end, because people will get sick of you fucking catch-all genre brand name, you know? Fortunately, we never did it to ourselves, but it did happen to us. In fact, thinking about the Warp tapes, you know, I mean, the main reason then tracks never came out on Warp was because they were fixated on this brand, on this thing, you know, this electronic listening music thing. And those tracks, I remember at the time, just after Drexciya 2 came out, so we were towards the end of compiling Incunabula, and I'd just heard, that was the first Drexciya record I heard, was Drexciya 2. And so I went to Rob Mitchell at Warp and said, have you heard this Drexciya shit? It's fucking fire. It's like amazing. You need to sign them. You know, they're fucking really good. I don't know where they are or anything about them really. And he was like, no, it's too retro. And that was the problem, was like a lot of the Warp tape stuff was the same sort of thing. Yeah, it's good, but you know, it just sounds a bit old. And so we had this weird thing with them early on, where we were trying to do what we just thought was good, and they would be like, well, yeah, but it's not really what's happening at the moment, or something like that. So that's why Incunabula took 2 years to compile, and why when we did Amber, we just kind of knew what they wanted at that point. So we just kind of did the tracks that we knew that they wouldn't turn down, you know. But I think, yeah, so yeah, what do I think of hyperpop? That's what I think of it. I think it's a genre, right? So it comes at a cost, but Sophie was a really fucking great artist, like really seriously good artist, and it's really difficult to kind of get normal people to like shit that's as weird as that is, you know. And that's the main thing that she achieved there. Or they. Is it she or they? I don't know. It's hard, right? I mean, it's like... But yeah, I mean, is it... What do I think of hyperpop in general? I mean, I like A.G. Cook, I like Sophie. I don't know much else. I've heard bits of like things that have been Hannah Diamond things and what have you. I'm not like... I don't know who does what in that scene at all. They're probably all just working with each other all the time anyway. I understood it conceptually immediately. You know, there were loads of things I understood though, like about it before it happened. So I kind of, and it was that hyper plastic, hyper kind of real, hyper sort of almost like fashion turning itself inside out. Made a lot of sense to me. It was a little bit like watching a kind of fashion show, but having taken loads of acid. You know, it was so far that way that it just become, the artificialness of it had become totally weird, like surreal. So yeah, you know, there are things about it that I find super relatable. You know, it's strange stuff, but I'm not sure if I'm seeing it from the same angle that they're seeing it from, if you know what I mean. So I'm obviously quite a lot older, and I think my kind of psychedelic associations are probably a little bit different, but maybe they're not. I don't know. Anyway, on the ideas things. You go into building a track with definite structural or conceptual ideas, then try to create them. No, never. Or let the machine throw out sounds that spur the creation of the structure concepts. Not that either. No, what I tend to do is work with a very basic idea. Everything's drafts. It's drafts all the way down. So it's like you do something, you think, is this good? Yes or no? If no, what's wrong with it? What do I change to make it good? Then you keep doing that, and then at some point you say, yes, okay, that's good. Okay, so what does that then suggest that I put with it? And then you might have what you might call an idea. So you might think, well, I could try this or I'll try that. And at some point you hit on something that works. So it's just they'd grow. The tracks grow based on me saying, is this shit or not, basically. If that makes sense. Kevin Key. So no. You know, I mean, there's some bits of early Skinny Puppy. Russell liked Skinny Puppy. He's always kind of played us bits of Skinny Puppy. I remember, like, me and Rob were sat there with Mantronic bassline on it, and he was going, stairs and flowers. And I was thinking, what the fuck, stairs and flowers? Like, I don't know that. And he played us it, and it was a bit like bassline by Mantronic. And I was like, oh, who's this? He's like, Skinny Puppy. And I was like, yeah, it's all right. It's sort of a bit weirdly mixed. And I've always sort of felt like that about that stuff. It's like, it's all right. I don't think it's shit. And I think there's probably a lot of fans of Skinny Puppy who think that it's basically the same as electro. But to me, it's always sounded quite different. It's like coming from a different place. But yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's pretty good. It's all right. But that Killing Game thing, when we got sent that, because I'd only heard that kind of old Skinny Puppy drum machine stuff, and I heard that Killing Game thing, and I was like, oh, it's not my kind of thing. But I think the way I should approach this is as if it isn't, and I've put the CD in the machine, and I'm thinking, what's going on here then? What is this? You know? So, yeah, the remix was a response to the track, really. And I don't know if I was to work with him again, I think I probably did make the right decisions doing that creatively and all that, but it was coming from a very different position to what it probably sounded like it was. So I don't know if I'd do the same thing again. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm up for remixing people a lot more than I am for letting them take control of anything, if you know what I mean. So yeah, probably find that easy. But I don't know if I'd want to work with them, because I only work with people that I get along with, really. So when using Macs, do you go cutting edge and update as soon as they release versions, or do you tend to stick for years? Yeah, so we're different. Like, I'm quite different to Rob. So like, I tend to update things immediately and then iron out any problems that come up. So I love finding that they've updated something, it's broken something crucial, and then figuring out the workaround. I like the challenge. You know, and it's like being on ground that's constantly shifting. So, and I can see why that'd be upsetting for people. So, and Rob doesn't like it. He doesn't like it when things get updated and all this shit suddenly doesn't sound the same. And he's very kind of so he's always a little bit behind me in terms of updates. But I'm always trying to fix the problem so that I can get ahead of it and take advantage of whatever new features there are. And like in 8.3 recently, there were some very kind of subtle under the hood timing improvements that I've asked him about, and there have been no changes to the way that scheduling works. So whatever it is something to do with my patch design. But it's improved, and so it was worth coming up with workarounds for all the issues that they then fixed in 8.3.1. So I already had workarounds for all that shit by the time that update came. But I know a bunch of other people were tearing their hair out because their shit stopped working. So, but they weren't hard things to fix. Like, there was a thing with the phaser phase. That was just a matter of adding like a plus and then a modulo. So, you know, there's always a way around it. Have you ever been in Italy on holidays? No, but I've been there loads. Good, Alexa. Glad to hear you. Doing alright. Damn, you're so behind. Fucking hell, read any good books lately? Well, you don't have to stay, you know what I mean? Gold Wave is Studio Lab for capturing recordings. It's brilliant for effects. Alright, I'll give it a check. How people read books, people read fan chats. Let's go. Are you having a nice Sunday? I see what you did there. Yeah. Yeah. Although the sun's gone. So, are you working on any videos? No. Yes, sort of. Rob's fighting around with jitter for ages. Well, the thing was, I sent him all them jitter patches that I'd used, which were some of which were his originally. So he'd done jitter patches. When I came to do the Twitch streaming, I was like, give me jitter patches. I then made new jitter patches based on his jitter patches. I then sent them back to him afterwards, and then he just got lost for about 18 months fucking around with GL shaders, so I don't know what he's doing now. Probably something good though. So, like, which of your releases would you recommend to start with to introduce your music to someone? I'd just try and figure out what they were into first. I mean, I don't know. If they were into metal, I'd probably play them Confield. If they were into, like, electro, probably play them Bike. I don't know. Fuck it, it's just depends on the person. Do you play video games? If so, which ones? Not lately. Like, not any games that a young person would have heard of. So, no, probably not much. It's not that I don't like it, it's just a fucking massive time vampire, basically. I've got too much other shit that I like doing, so. Do you like modern hip-hop? Have you heard the latest Playboy Carti? No. I was listening to the Strange Things in the 80s. Conductor Williams beats. Yeah. Yeah, man. Rock Marciano, exactly. Right. What's your favourite programming language? Rust. Well, you know what? I only like fuck around with Python and GenExpo, so I'm kind of. I don't like JavaScript. What's your live setup nowadays? 2 Macs, and these Kenton Killer Mix things, and a couple of interfaces. The Killer Mix is much better than it looks, you know. Like, it's got all these layers, because one of the problems with controllers is getting enough actual parameters available to you in one go, and the Killer Mix, weirdly, is like ahead of all the others, because it's got so many layers. So even though it's only 8 knobs, it doesn't look like much, but that thing's a beast. And if something better comes along, I'll probably upgrade to something better, but I haven't found anything yet. So if anybody knows any controllers that have got as many available parameters as that thing. Oh, and it helps that it's got clicking knobs, because a lot of my variables are integers, so I kind of like to know how many integers I've moved the knob, and I can feel that with those knobs. There's a tactile thing there, so that makes them really good. But I wish the buttons were a bit softer, because they're a bit, you know, you can hear them. Favourite Coil albums? I mean, love Secret Domain, because that's the first one that I bought and had the most impact on me. And then the subsequent albums around that, so like Stolen and Contaminated Songs, and there's another one around that time as well, with similar material and bits and bobs and remixes, and then Unnatural Histories, and then, well, I'd just be listing all the releases. I think Black Light District's quite good. It's sort of one that people don't talk about much, but I quite like that. I always liked that album. Thought it was really nice. Time Machines is fucking great. It's like really good. That's a proper grower though. But yeah, I don't know, like, beyond that, I mean, I do like music to play in the dark. I like both of them. I like Moon's Milk. I like those releases, but I was always more interested in the instrumental stuff, because taste, you know, and my way into it and that. But I do like the vocal tracks a bit. Like, I love that Broccoli track, and I like that, is it called Red Queen? That, to me, that's hip-hop. Like that, What Are You Gonna Do? That track. That's a hip-hop track, man. I mean, that's like, that's not singing, you know, that's rapping. Had any hardware performance issues while using Maximus P? Yeah, all the time. I mean, it's always like it's a constant battle getting the shit to work at all. running 68 different patches at once and getting them all and being able to switch them all and all that is hard. It took a lot of different experiments architecturally to figure out. But I'm not the best. I'm sure you could easily do it if you'd written it all in machine code or something. But I'm just not. I'm not at that level, so I'm stuck with what I know. So if this has been asked before, but have you or both of you considered streaming some Mac stuff? Maybe not showing off your tech, but just doodling. Yeah, I have considered that. I thought it might get a bit boring. We did that anyway for them early Twitch streams. That was pure doodling. That was pure me just farting around, streaming it. But I don't mind listening to the same patch for 8 hours because that's what I do all the time. But I think for an audience, it's a bit of an ask, maybe, especially when it isn't developing very much because I'm trying to fucking hone down some little detail in there and trying to, that stuff I don't mind if it's ticking over while I'm doing that, whereas a lot of other people are just, clock watching. So I think in that sense it's probably not a great strategy to do that, but maybe I don't really like these kind of, hey, here's an introduction to my system, or I'm going to do a tutorial now on this technique. I don't like watching stuff like that myself, so I'm probably not going to do anything like that, but I find it quite boring, to be honest. But I've used Macs on the Apple M1 chips yet. How is it performing? Very, very fucking well, is the answer. Kind of thing you're listening to at the moment, just my own shit because I'm boring, and honestly by the time I finish working all day I don't really feel like listening to any tunes, so I don't look for inspiration from music. It doesn't really work like that. It hasn't for quite a long time. And when I do listen to music I tend to listen to stuff that I could never make, so that's why I went on a Henry Cow binge, because it's about as far away from my skill set as you can get, and like Gorguts Obscura, I cane that album. I absolutely love that album because it's so far away from what I can do. It's also fucking amazing, right? So, and Portal, that Aussie metal band, well, if you can call them metal, yeah, like Baring Teeth, they're another one. I got into because after Henry Cow I got into loads of Fred Frith's weird things like that Massacre thing and a load of other things that he'd done, and I started really enjoying them. But yeah, I tend to listen to stuff that's not very contemporary or current, because obviously, that's the other thing with my taste and what I'm doing in my work and all that, is that I tend to get sick of things quite quickly, or, I get bored of things. So I'll listen to sort of new music for a bit, but then once the sort of common thread that's running through everyone's stuff at the time has become apparent, I'll kind of lose interest in it, and so I'll have to go off and listen to something that isn't around, that nobody's doing at the moment. And yeah, Henry Cow was that for a while, because there was nobody making music remotely like that I were hearing anyway, so yeah, plus the drumming on Henry Cow is just off the charts good. It's just so good. Penka and 19 headaches related in production method? Interesting question. Yes. Both Nord, mostly. I think Penka's completely Nord, actually. Oh no, the drums are RY30. Yeah, RY30 and Nord. In fact, they're both RY30 and Nord, so yeah, basically, yeah, they are. And Logic environment, sort of pre-Max patches, I guess you could call them. Still got love for the ASR 10. I won't sell it. I ain't used it in forever. I love it though. I mean, it's just beautiful, isn't it? It's just a really, really beautiful machine. Everything it does is amazing. There's so much creativity buried in there. It's just, that's the thing with music tech. You start to realise, well, you probably realise quite soon, really, if you're smart, that there's just so much fucking creativity in there. I mean, it's just like you're buying a box of creative decisions ultimately, and the ASR10's a great example of that, and the Kurtz file as well, which we don't talk about much. But yeah, the K2600, K2500, they're just absolute beasts, just like amazing things. Where are we? Have you seen that after the Easter egg thing, someone joked on Whatham that it was Richard Devine that leaked the info about it, and that's how it's gone down as the real lore on Wikipedia. Hey. You gotta love Richard Devine, haven't you? Fucking right. What's going on with Scam? I don't know what's going on with Scam. I don't know. No, I mean, honestly, like, Andy got into a new house, so he's been setting up a bit of a room. So I've heard. I've not been over there for a bit because I'm in Norway. So, but yeah, he's like, you know, he's getting his mates round. He's having little sessions. He's doing stuff. He's got some gear set up. He's messing about. Is he gonna put some releases together? Yeah, probably. I know he's like, he did the Afro Deutsch thing, didn't he? And I don't know what he's done since then because I haven't been in touch much. But I'm out the loop, so I'm not the right guy to ask about that. What do you think of the finished 8 set recreation? It's astounding. It's like, it must have been so much work. I had a feeling someone would try something like that, but I didn't think they'd be so anal about it. It was crazy. I felt a bit weirdly humbled by it, if I'm being honest, because, I mean, I guess people really wanted to hear it, and that's about as close as you're going to get, because we didn't record them, and I wish we had, because I would have fucking released it if we had, because, you know, it's good shit, I think. But, yeah, just really kind of just, yeah, I felt humbled, is what it is, that somebody's put that much time into doing that. You know, amazing. Just like, thank you for doing it, because I've now got it and I can hear it. So, when you make a track, is it always collaborative effort, or do you guys have solo tracks sprinkled? I don't know about sprinkled, more like fucking poured all over, you know. I mean, it's a lot of our shit is solo tracks, like a lot of it. We've just got real similar taste. There's a big enough overlap for you not to be able to tell what's what. You know, we're not Lennon and McCartney where you immediately know who's done what. That said, we know, like, immediately. But sometimes we do impressions of each other. You know, I do things that are heavily inspired by Rob's stuff, and he vice versa. And we try and sort of battle each other a little bit as well. So all that's going on. But yeah, I'd say, like, I mean, these days the majority of it's solo-ish, but it's sort of hard as well to say what's solo when you've built the tools together, or where you're using each other's tools to do the track. So if I'm using gear that he's built, then I guess it's a collaboration, which puts the whole hardware thing in another light, doesn't it? Because you sort of realise that I'm collaborating with, you know, Alesis and Ensonic and these people over the years, right, as well, and Roland. You know, they're all collaborations, really, if you want to get into it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, but yeah, in terms of tracks where we both work on the track and we both had some input on all of the elements of the track, fuck, it's really difficult to say, because, you know, sometimes we just use each other's sounds, or we use each other's patches, or, you know, sometimes we just do a little bit of editing or gating on each other's tracks, and or maybe we remix each of his tracks, you know, and so it's sort of, it's all really fucking fuzzy and difficult to pin down exactly who did what. So we just 50-50 everything, split-wise, writing splits and production splits, and then we just do what we want. It gives us full freedom that way. We don't have to worry about who contributed what to what, you know. So it becomes a moot point, really. Got censored because you can't say the group name or the other guy in this duo, lol. Yeah, sorry, that was ages ago, because when I was doing the first streams, there was just so much Sean please in the chat, I just thought, nah. Any news on the whereabouts of Bok? No, none whatsoever. No news, no Bok news. And even if I had it, I wouldn't tell you lot. So Why is that highlighted? I don't know. I don't understand Twitch. My first sampler was in Sonic Mirage. Yeah, nice. What's the joke behind eggshell and O equals 0? There isn't one. Please shut the fuck up about box and Bok. And yeah, no, I don't care if people ask me about Bok, but I'm not going to give any Bok info out because you know what Bok are like. They don't want me dishing out their info, even if I did have it, which I don't have any info anyway. So you know, I'm not going to dish out what I don't have. But I don't know where they are. They're probably in the future somewhere, worrying about why it isn't like the past. So, do you like Death Grips? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I also get why I'm not supposed to like Death Grips. But yeah, Death Grips were all right. You know, it makes some sense. It is for American teenage boys. Let's be honest. I could never really understand things like Rage Against the Machine when I was a kid. You know, I used to see that stuff and be like, it's so alien to me as a Brit. We didn't have anything like that in the UK. And I feel like Death Grips is in that tradition. You know, I'm gonna shout. Rah! So it's like a man shouting, which you know, it is what it is. But I do like it. I think it's got energy. You know, I like Guillotine. It's good, isn't it? I mean, it's just good. It works, but it's a bit silly as well. So, what do you feel when making your early music? Naive question, I know, but would you put it in somewhere uncanny? What does that feeling mean today? How does that compare? This is a weird question that I can't quite wrap my brain around. Basically, I'm trying to ask, what should your mind go through today to bring you into a similar hype? Just be critical. Just be like, what the fuck is going on with all this shit music? Why isn't it like what I think it should be like? Because that's where my head was at the time. So, if you want to know, that's what the vibe was. Like, why is everything so shit? That, you know? Said in the past that you find your old work cheesy, but are there any standout moments you like to listen to? Yeah, so, I mean, I think at the time that we said that, I mean, I remember where we were. We were doing an interview with a guy who just tried to get us to shoot a lot of computers in his back garden or something, and I was like, "But that's just sounds totally shit. I'm not doing it." Because he was like, "Oh yeah, we'll take pictures of you shooting these computers with a rifle in my back garden. They're all broken computers," and I was like, "No, everything about this is wrong." Like, you know, I'm like, I've got so much legacy hardware. The idea of shooting up a load of computers because they were out of date is just so fucking alien and weird. And so he was pissed off with me because I'd said that. And I'd said, and anyway, guns aren't really associated with good things. And then he misquoted me as saying, I don't want Autechre to be associated with guns. So I was just like, this guy. And then yeah, he'd played me a bunch of VVM tracks taking the piss out of Autechre, which I always thought was a weird target because Autechre was taking the piss with a lot of his stuff anyway, so it was weird to be taking the piss out of another comedian, in a way. Not that Rich is a comedian, but, you know, it's there, isn't it, in his work. And I was like, well, this journalist, I just didn't understand or like this person at all. I just thought he was weird. And then he said to us, like, yeah, so, you know, what made you change from doing those early albums? What was the big thing that made you change? And he was just winding me up. So I think, and it was Rob actually who said that, like, well, you know, a lot of that old stuff's quite cheesy, really. And I think at the time we thought it was. We thought, well, I mean, it was, what, 99? So we were about as far away, sort of, on our aesthetic trajectory as we could be. You know what I mean? We were kind of at the other apex of the curve of the cycle of whatever it is that makes you like things. And we were sort of, you know, oh, well, yeah. I don't know if I think of it as being that cheesy now. I do think that Incunabula sounds like a very curated album. It isn't the album that we would have put together. It's the album Warp put together from hundreds of tracks that we had. Amber was us trying to give them another one of those albums because we knew that they wanted an album like that. you know, and it took us 2 years to actually figure out what that album should look like with Incunabula. And I think that the whole thing of dealing with a label and them taking an active curatorial role in your release makes you question whether it's good or not. And I feel sorry for bands who have a very kind of hyperactive A&R man who is there doing the old, you know, no, you know, make it sound more like this, or like bands, even on Warp, I know there were bands who worked with Rob Mitchell who used to have to keep redoing their mixes because he was critical of their mixes, and I think it just erodes your self-confidence working that closely with someone at a label. And after that, after Incunabula was compiled, and after we delivered Amber, what put us with Steve instead of Rob, because there were just the two of them really doing any A&R at the time. And Steve's approach to A&R was very different to Rob. Steve's approach was, let me know when the album's finished, which, you know, that's what we wanted. We wanted the freedom to be able to just make the album and deliver the album and just have it like that. So, and so, yeah, Amber was an attempt to win them over enough to make them feel like they could just trust us to deliver an album, and it worked. And but there's still bits of Amber that I really like. I think Piezo's really good. I think Montreal and Fervor and Yulken are really good. Yeah, I kind of and Nil. Incunabula, I like most of Incunabula, but it, like I say, it spans such a long period of time that there were other tracks that I would have preferred that had got on there, but then they probably would have dated the album a bit. They probably would have pulled it back a few years to bleep techno, or, you know, kind of late 80s hip-hop, electro, freestyle type things that at the time, you know, people weren't vibing on in the UK. So yeah, it probably was the right thing to do at the time, but it's probably not what I would choose to do now. I don't even know what I'm saying there, really, because obviously I wouldn't choose to do any of it now, but, you know, anyway. Lost. Yeah, the death of TV from Lost. Yeah, I do agree, Brap. I think, like, the end of Lost was a lot like the end of Game of Thrones, wasn't it? It was like, it had all the promise of being being resolved properly. They led you on so much to believe that they were going to resolve it in some kind of epic way, and then just fucked it, just totally fucked it. Yeah, I hate that. I fucking hate it. It's like, why bother fucking leading me on if you're gonna do that shit? You know what I mean? Like, sorry, I'm fighting with fucking some kind of bug. Right, so Decade stream much on Sign Plus. Yeah, first track on Sign. It's on there. That Autechre. That's why it's called Autechre, right? So. Yeah, Brad, watch The Expanse, but bear in mind that Series 1's really fucking slow and nothing like the rest of it. So at first you're thinking, what is this kind of noir cop thing? I'm not sure I can get into this. But then it pivots and it's good. And it's all good anyway, actually. You start liking the beginning of it once you've seen the rest of it. So it's good. DMX sounds in A Live stuff. I'm assuming you're talking about samples from the DMX, yeah. No, it's not modelled or anything, it's just samples, but the DMX is samples, right? So I don't have to feel weird about that. But yeah, it is a bit mutated as well. It's being fucked with. So, in a cool way, so. But yeah, it's basically one track where it's just DMX kick and snare, and I don't know if there's a clap in there. I really like the DMX sounds. They just immediately put me somewhere. It's like, there's a certain kind of like late night radio soul that used the DMX that was just massively appealing to us. I don't know why the DMX and not the Lindrum was the drum machine of choice for a lot of soul artists, but it just has that feel to it. There's only a subtle difference between them, really, but I've always preferred the DMX. I don't know. My friend has a bunch of unreleased tracks from 2012 that are apparently from a CDR you left at Annals. He won't share them with us and will only play them from his phone at me so I can hear bits. He feels it's morally wrong to share them with us. Do you care if he does? I mean, I'll be honest, Spiral, right? I don't really care if he shares them with you because you're gonna only share it with a few mutants, aren't you? So it's not gonna really get out there. But I know it will eventually anyway, just because it's fucking internet. So, but if you really, really want them off him, well, I'm not going to tell you in a Twitch chat that it's all right, because then you've got to, I'll just like, I can't even remember what's on it. I'm pretty sure at least one of them's been released, because I know I gave one of them to Alex for that Japan thing. So, and I don't know about the rest. They're probably not very good. I know one of them ended up being used by a thing that we were supposed to do with Syriac in America for some video screen show that I don't even know if that thing ended up happening, and then never got back in touch, and I never saw the Syriac videos. So that was ages ago though, and I don't know what happened with that. That was a weird situation, to be honest. So, and I don't think anybody knows about it. I've never seen anyone talk about it. It's like it never happened. Fucking mozzies, man. Mozzies in Norway. Right, so, what do you think about Villalobos? Yeah, I mean, look, I don't have an opinion on Villalobos, if I'm being honest. Just don't really have an opinion. I don't know enough of his stuff. I see his name about, and I know he makes some sort of techno, and I know he props us quite a lot. I'm not going to say I don't like it, because I just don't have an opinion, because I've not heard it. I don't really seek out that kind of stuff, so maybe I could check it at some point and have a more rounded answer for you. I always feel like if somebody's giving us that much props, that they're probably at least are going to share some taste with me, so there's probably something about it that I would like. So can I just leave it at that? I don't know. Am I an Amiga fan? I never owned one. A few mates of mine had them. I was out doing graffiti and fucking around when Amigas were getting big, so I weren't like a kind of tracker kid, really. I got into trackers through Alex Diobe. Got me on, showed me Renoise in the late 90s, and I started fucking around with it then and liked it, but it was never like my favourite program. But I also, coming from a tape editing background, there were things about it that I could really relate to, especially the note exclusivity thing, which I just love, and I've always loved that. But it was I found it a little bit annoying going from, like having to work with samples that were just like numbered and catalogued in that way. I found it a bit limiting, but I'm sure if you've grown up with it and you haven't had a DAW, that you probably think it's the best thing. Like, I hear what Aaron does, and I'm just kind of blown away. So, yeah, and I've got mates who use Renoise and trackers, like, Sean Doris and Colin Anodyne, and you can't tell. You can't tell they're using Renoise. They just like sound like hardware records or whatever, so you just don't know a lot of the time. And I quite like the fact that you can do that with Renoise, that you can use it in that way, but I always used it just purely to cut up samples because I felt like that was what its strength was, so you get me. But yeah, I'm not like a demo scene kind of Amiga guy, really. That was a scene that was separate from what we were doing. We were drum machine kids. We were 80s drum machine electro kids, really, ultimately, at heart. What's it like having been the best part of COVID? No comment. Fucking hell. I don't want to talk about COVID. Right, your thoughts about current situation in the world. The current situation in the world. Yeah, it's, it's great. Yeah, it's fine. No, I'm not going to come up with some pithy fucking sentence about the current situation in the world. It's bad to do that. So, world's a complicated place. There's a lot of interests, and resources are dwindling, and see what happens. It does nut me out, right, that there's twice as many people alive today as there were when I was born. That's mad, isn't it? That's mad, right? It's just mad. Twice as many people. It's just mad. Looking forward to hearing you. Blah, blah, blah. Any thoughts about Xenakis? Not really. I mean, you know, like, I think Gendy and Jendin are like, they're fun. Like, I like Gendy. I think it's cool. Like, it's cool what you can do with just a few lines of code. You know, I think it's beautiful. Then again, it is like horrible noise. So you know. Yeah, no, I like Xenakis. I think he's sort of a little bit. He's one of those people who it's cool to say that you like, especially if you're like a noise drone person, because it makes you sound cultured. But I'm not interested in any of that really. I just sort of go for whether I like it or not. And there are bits of his stuff that I think are fucking amazing. Like that one. How do you pronounce it? Misanai or Mysanai Alpha? That thing. That's got some amazing moments in it. It's also got some bits that are kind of horrible. So, yeah, I mean, bits are good, bits of it are good. He's a bit hit and miss for me, but, you know, he's one of those people I feel like I'm supposed to like. What's the most profound thing that you've ever experienced? I don't know, what does profound mean? I mean, like, wow, I've got look at ants. Ants are cool, aren't they? Like, can you see that little guy? Probably not, because I ain't got a macro lens. I like ants. Hi. Well, he's just living with me now, so... Like, shit changed since 94. Some say it was meteorites hitting Jupiter. That's some 2001 shit, that is. Changed the frequency of Jupiter. What? You're going to have to give me more information on this. What's it like working together in the same room versus remotely? It's good, I guess. We sort of probably like... I mean, it's one of them, it's two blokes hanging out together in it, you know, getting blazed up and sort of vibing on tracks. It's fun. But it's also fun to be on your own with your headphones on a fucking mission. So they're both good, but they're just different things, you know what I mean? These days I do a lot more of the latter. So, you know, I like headphones and solitude and locked in and fucking on course. But I know that I'm going to be sharing it with Rob down the line and that he's going to hear it in his house. So I'm kind of... It's like making a meal for someone, you know what I mean? So, versus hanging out with him and eating the meal. So I guess that's the difference, you know. I like both, basically. How much acid influenced your music? Were you taking it at all? And are you taking it up to this day? Yeah, I was. A lot. Probably more than most ravers were at the time, because it was what I chose out of all the different available party drugs. It was the one. And mushrooms. But I preferred acid. They're quite different things. You know, mushrooms always made me a bit sad. Acid was just like being able to see through everything. It was all my own associations, obviously, but, you know, yeah, it made me cynical, and it made me kind of... I don't feel like I've ever really... I think it rewired my brain permanently, actually. Probably just had too much of it over the time that I was taking it. I haven't had it in a while, though. Would I enjoy it now as much? I don't know. I feel like my experience has probably brought me to that level anyway, if that makes any sense. So, not sure it'd be as useful now, but at the time, as a kid, yeah, it was like a kind of... There's a kind of fast track into feeling like I got how things work, if that makes sense. Probably totally illusory, obviously. I'm not recommending anybody does it. Because that would be a bad thing to do, right? So... when we release Boards of Canada Sickly cover. I've only got it on cassette, so I can't release it. So if you want that Sickly cover, you're going to have to get Warp to get Boards to give it to them for some fucking anniversary release or some shit like that, because that's the only way it's ever going to come out, I think, now. They would have had a chance to do it when Warp did that covers album, and they probably just decided not to for reasons. So I think the sort of chance has passed already. I don't think it's likely to... A hype train is... What is this? I don't understand any of this stuff. What is this? Some Twitch thing. How did you draw a line between fucking around with production and writing a decent tune when you were starting out? We didn't have much gear, so we just didn't... There weren't a lot we could fuck around. We fucked around as much as we possibly could, I think, given the constraints. I mean, when you've only got a 606, an RSD-10, a 202, and then a bit later you've got an R8 and a Juno, there's not, there's some things you can do, and we did all those things, but, you kind of, once you've read the manual back to back and you've tried every function, you kind of, that's all you can do, innit? So I know it matters what notes you use and what order you put them in, but I didn't give a shit about any of that as a kid. I just, it was just like what sounds good, so I just used to do what sounded good. Kevin might be hard to get along with. Dwayne was the cool one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I'd probably get along with him because I'm as opinionated as they probably are. So, that Tron Giorgio remix sounded a lot more like straight up track of yours at the time. Yeah, that was a weird one because I was there was a time constraint and I only had my Mac stuff with me at the time, so I just kind of got Giorgio's bits and figured out the tempo and then just wrote a load of stuff that would be in key with it and then layered his bits over that in a DAW once I'd recorded the stuff from Max. So I had to work knowing that there was this kind of constraint, and I didn't really expand on it much further than that. But it was for Disney, so didn't have to be good, did it? You do more DJ mixes in the foreseeable future? Those you've done in the past were top. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. I enjoy doing them, but like I say, I mean, I've played most of the records that I own already about 10 times, but yeah, I can do it again if you really want. We release a remix compilation. Some of your remixes are hard to find. Yeah, I'm not doing it. It's just hard for licensing. Getting the shit licensed is hard work. So I talked to WAP about it. They didn't want to know. They were just like, nah, too much. And the problem is, you've only got to miss one off, and then my fucking autism starts going. I'm like, what? We need all of them. Why can't we have all of them? So it's a weird one. Like I'd like to, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. I mean, 26 mixes for cash. Yeah, someone's mentioned that. How many remixes had Autechre done at that point? It was probably more than 26, right? I would have thought so. I think we'd done about 50 by then. So he must have they must have just picked the ones that he liked or something. So, yeah, maybe we could do something like that. I always feel like it'd be a bit of a compromise. Anyway, I mean, you can just go and download them all. I mean, can't you? I mean, just go on SoulSeek. I mean, I'm not helping you do that. I don't have any need to make money out of it or anything like that. So, other than making it more convenient for you lot, I mean, maybe one of you lot should just collate them all, do some nice rips, 16-bit, 44K rips of all the CDs, put it all in a folder and put it on SoulSeek. I mean, I'm not advocating for that because obviously I don't own any of the work, right? So the labels and the artists own the work, don't they? So, ask the artists. Do you hate Mac's high design compared to Mac's 6? No. Human interface design. Yeah, no, I don't. No, I like it. It's like, it's kind of neat and tidy and everything's square and flat. Mac's 6 was all rounded corners and mistakes. And they quickly rectified those mistakes. So, I don't want to go back. I like, I mean, I'm a Mac's 3 guy, really, you know that. So, yeah. But I like rounded cable. I like curly cables as well, which is controversial. And I've got loads of mates who just switch that off. I like it because you can get them in and around things easier, and you can also see where they terminate a bit better just by looking. You can see where the end of the cable is a bit easier, right? So you can tell if it's going past something or if it's going into it, sort of thing. So you know, there are sort of these subtle changes. They actually make the workflow a bit better. So even though it might look a bit not quite as techno or something, that makes sense. Did anyone ever approach you about doing a more conventional record or collab with someone mainstream? I don't know. I mean, if they did, I can't remember. So, probably not. What flavour is the vape? It's like it's just a Nick shot. There's no flavour. It's just Nick. It's just a Nick shot. I know I'm supposed to mix it up with flavour, but fuck flavour, man. It's just, who cares about flavour? It's just annoying, isn't it, if you're on a train or something and some cunt starts fucking pumping air freshener at you. So this way I can vape anywhere. No one says shit because they can't even smell it. So Ice Boy Violet, Space Africa and Blackane. Don't know any of them, but I'm going to check them all. But you know what, I don't check music because it's local. I hate that fucking civic pride shit, especially in Manchester. You know, this thing about liking things from Manchester because they're from Manchester. Fuck that. Fucking hell. The one thing about the Manchester scene growing up was that no one fucking liked each other. Everyone thought everyone else was shit. For good reason, you know, because it's a city full of independent thinkers, so that's the way it should be. Fuck civic pride, though. Fucking love 808 State and Gerald, you know, they're where it's at. But, like, I'm old, so what's that worth? Nothing, right? So, you know. Yeah, the Mister thing. Yeah, FPGA Mister. Yeah, so I thought about getting one. So obviously I like MAME and all that. Yeah, maybe down the line. I probably will at some point. But I haven't opened my MAME library in ages, and you got to maintain that shit, you know. So a lot of it don't work now. And I ended up getting some, I think a torrent or something with just all of MAME up to a certain point, but then I couldn't quite get it to work, and it's just sitting there losing bits on my drive at the moment. So maybe I'll get there. Who would you rather fight in a no rules fist fight, Stockhausen or Xenakis? I wouldn't want to punch Stocky, you know. I think he'd recoil, wouldn't he? He'd sort of, you know. I don't think he'd really rise to the challenge. I think Xenakis would try beating the shit out of me though, so, you know. Probably lose, but you know. Tried Super Glider recently? No, nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. I don't like JavaScript, and I've never seen anyone who does. Fucking right on. Ugly. Right, any chance of you guys playing Zurich again soon? Also was about to ask about Python. Use it for your setup at all? No, but it's just like if you're going to use Max for Live, you end up needing to know a bit about it, because it's basically Max for Live's just the kind of... I'm not going to get into this. I am too closely associated with these people to start reeling off comments about it, but ultimately it helps to know a bit of Python. So strange, I literally just started listening 15 minutes ago and there's an AMA going on. Griselda is pretty dope for new hip-hop. Yeah, I love Griselda, but I don't know if their sort of flavour has become a bit more 90s boom bap, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because there's a lot of haters now who just want that slow Derringer shit, and I like all of it, if I'm being honest. That one with Slick Rick on, Good Night, oh my god. Like, but that was an album a lot of people considered a bit normal. for Griselda, I mean. But yeah, anyway, I'm not a fucking Griselda reviews channel, so fuck this. I'm still in contact with Mick Harris. Now, I've not heard from Mick for a long time. Like, a long time. But obviously, I still got a lot of respect for Mick. Mick's done a lot of amazing shit. You know, he managed to get such a hard sound out of such a small amount of stuff. You know, we bonded over gear use. He was the first person I talked to who really fucking got why and Sonic were good back in the day. Yeah, I mean, Mick's Mick, you know, you can't not like Mick because he's kind of magnetic, but he's also sort of like, you know, as a magnet, he can be quite repellent as well. So I think, you know, just depends on your polarity, I guess. Just want to say major thanks for Primavera. Thank you. Griselda's good, but what do you think of sound fonts? Yeah, what do you think of sound fonts? It's weird, you know, when you hear trap or like drill, and they've all got that ching snare, like that little ching. I quite like that little snare, but it's just everywhere, isn't it? It's just mad. It's like mad how many drill beats are just the same beat. It's just totally mad. But you know, I guess boom bap was like that as well, really, if you're objective about it. What's process creating a track list as big as NTS? How do you decide the flow of the album? You just do. I don't know. I've been doing long mixes for a long time, so I'm really into planning out these long sessions. I used to do mixes for just acid sessions. We used to use DATs, because DATs, you could get like 4 hours on a DAT back in the day, so we'd do these big long fucking mixes, and you'd know at what point the drugs start working and at what point you're going to start getting trails and all that. So that was just that, you know what I mean? But I'm saying, yeah, I mean, long term, long mixes for long periods of time. I've always liked that. I always like Mixmaster Morris sets. You know, he could play sets all day. He would just play a set all day, and you'd still be with him by the end of the day. He'd still be able to keep you interested, and I always admired that about him. Because he's got such a kind of, you know, encyclopedic knowledge of music history that he can keep pulling him out the bag, as it were. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit as a DJ, to be honest. New Electron Gear, Digitone, Syntact and Model, not used any of them. Broccoli, amazing. Oh, this is when I was talking about Coil. Oh my god, I'm so behind. Fuck, I'm so sorry. Like, this must be really frustrating for you lot. Who made the Debris remix on Mask 500? Which one is that? Is that the crazy one? It was both of us. We did it in Dazzy's studio because he had the tape reels with the vocal on. And we used Dazzy's gear, but we used RR8 to trigger. No, to do the drum. I think the drums were actually on the R8. So it's a funny thing where I think when we did that was just when we'd done Cavity Job. I can't remember. I think it was just after we'd done Cavity Job or around that time. Because with Cavity Job, we'd done the track and we'd sent that off to the label Hardcore, and then the guy who ran the label said that he wanted a cleaner version, and we didn't really have the gear to do that because we'd done it on the Tascam and we hadn't even doing it on a proper sampler when we done it. Like, the drums on Cavity Job originally were the kick and the snare, which we took off a record, and then we'd played that on the SK5 on the pads onto a tape for about a minute, just playing the same drum loop, and then we just took the bar of it that was the tightest and we looped that on the RSD10. So it was like really fucked by this point, you know what I mean? But good, but a special kind of like low res. And then and loads of the track was made like that, where it was just kind of everything had been put through everything, and there was a bit of filtered, bit of a sample. The chord off it is what it is. Rhythm is rhythm was on there towards the end, like sampled and then played through like an SH1 with the filter going, sort of envelope filter thing. And yeah, there was a lot of that kind of stuff on there, and it would have been quite hard to reproduce. So we went in Dazzy's studio and we just sort of took the samples and we tried to remake the track in Dazzy's studio, and that took a while. It took like a week. And we did the same for Accelera. So the original versions of Cavity Job and Accelera don't sound like the versions that came out, and the originals were the ones that we used to play on IBC and that we'd DJ with, and they were a lot rougher and different. In fact, on that Sweatbox video where we're supposedly playing live, but we couldn't because the guy got panicked about us plugging a synth into a PA, because he apparently, according to the guy who ran the venue, a synth makes a perfect square wave, and a perfect square wave will break a speaker, which, you know, obviously I've since learned is just completely wrong. But he just believed this, so he wouldn't let us connect our synths to his club PA. So we just played tracks off the 4-track and kind of messed around over it a little bit. And so the version of Cavity Job that we played during that gig, if you can call it a gig, was the IBC version, is the original. So it sounds quite different. You can't really tell though, because it's recorded off a camcorder, so you've got another layer of dirt there. But and anyway, so we had that new Cavity Job version, and then we afterwards, I think, to pay Daz, he asked us to remix his band, so we did that basically for free for him in his studio using his gear. So that was a little bit like using someone else's setup, but it was cool because he had things like vocoders and we didn't have any of that. So, you know, that's why it sounds a bit ahead of other shit we were doing at that point, you know, in some ways, because of Daz's gear basically, because we just didn't have that much gear. Do you ever bump Analog? You know, not for a while. I mean, there were some tracks on there that I really liked. I can't remember names. Yeah, there are some tracks that I really like on Analog, and I don't know names of them, and I've just got a vague memory of what they sound like now. But yeah, I mean, it was beautifully made. I mean, I remember thinking at the time, like, some of the hi-hat patterns on that shit were just so sneaky. They're so kind of different. And they still work, you know. And I like that. I always like that about Richard. You know, he could do things that you weren't really expecting somebody to do, you know. And there'd be quite odd things like, why has he put a closed hi-hat there? But it really works, right? So, and I think there are things about those records that are quite subtle that have gone under the radar for a lot of people. I think it's too easy to just say, oh, well, it's just bog standard acid techno. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's like subtly different. And if you know that kind of music, you're going to know that it's subtly different. So, yeah. There are things about it I really like. I haven't played it for a while. You know, respect where it's due. Is being high in analytical thinking for coding a balancing act, or does it in fact work well together for you? It helps me focus, so I don't need it. I've been without it for a while now. I'm working harder than ever. I think I'm doing more complicated shit that I'm finding it easier to keep track of than I was. The advantage with Max versus a lot of other coding methods is that you can see it all at all times, so you don't forget what you're doing. So it's harder to lose the thread, if you like. For Gen Exper, I wouldn't like to get too stoned, because I'd just spend my time having to review the code constantly, and that gets annoying. Whereas Max, I'm presented with something visual that my brain just finds it a lot easier to keep track of. So, yeah, I'd say for Max particularly, getting stoned is fine. I'd say for other types of coding, it might not work as well. But I know people who've grown up coding who love coding stoned, right? Likewise, I know people who love coding pissed. I can't really do that. Doesn't work for me, but I know people who can code pissed, right? So it just comes out the fingers. It's just that kind of intuitive flow state thing for them. But you know, my particular neural setup means that I get distracted easily. and sometimes weed can be good for blocking out those distractions and keeping on with the task at hand. But you know, at the same time, the fact that I'm distracted easily is what makes me have the ideas that I think are actually worth pursuing. And I've only learned that in retrospect, because I feel like if I get distracted and I want to go off on some tangent, then that always ends up being more interesting than whatever I'd set out to do to begin with. So being distracted is a positive thing, not necessarily a negative thing, and weed can block out me being distracted too much to actually get anything completed. So yeah, it's a balancing act, I guess, not having it as much as it is having it. So, you know, and it's an experience thing as well. I think if you like blazing all day every day, you know, you're gonna find it easier to work in that state than you would if you didn't have it at all. So yeah, I think it varies basically, and everyone's different, right? So someone else who likes Portal is killer. I've played shows with them. Nice. Yeah, Portal are fucking great. They're like really great. Fucking hell. The Sway track, fucking hell. Yeah, they're proper good. You ever got into Miles Davis Electric Period stuff, Bitches Brewing Beyond? Yeah, On the Corner, and yeah, I mean, I like them. They're good. They're really good. They sort of put me in a certain frame of mind as well. I feel like I'm kind of chasing someone around New York or something. It's like a weird vibe they put me in. It's a very particular vibe. Do I like it? Yeah, a lot. I mean, what's his name? Jack the Jonette, the drummer guy. It's just phenomenally good. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like almost too good. It's such a particular vibe though. It's almost like I feel like I don't want that to be my reference point, because you'd only end up sounding like that, because it is that is what that is. It's so particular. Actually got introduced to a lot of that by Tom, because Tom Jenks for a while was living with Rob in Sheffield in the sort of mid to late 90s for a few years, like I think 2 or 3 years they lived together, and so he was round at ours all the time, and yeah, we used to play each other's shit. I'd play him like on my weird 80s hip hop shit, and he'd be like, yeah, it's alright, you know, and then he'd play me Miles Davis, and I'd be like, yeah, it's alright, you know. So, but I ended up liking it quite a bit. He's good like that, Tom. He's like, he's another obsessive listener, you know. But he was kind of like, really like, this is the best music ever, you know what I mean? Like, that was totally his thing. And there was some elements of it I really wasn't prepared for. I remember first hearing Bitches Brew and thinking, what, everything's sliding out of sync? What the fuck is going on here? What is this? Is this on purpose? Is this how it's meant to be? And he was like, yeah, and then he told me about how a lot of the other jazz people just hated it. They just thought it was totally wrong. Like, it took me, there was another one who took me ages to get into, was Sun Ra, and I only got into Sun Ra probably about 10 years ago. Because for ages I just thought it sounded like a mess. I was just like, what is this? It's just like fucking cacophonous. And then I was in some weird emotional state once, and I put some of it on because it was the only thing that I could listen to. Don't know if you really if you're feeling really spun out or depressed, and then you play Sun Ra, it fucking finds its way in. And then I was like, wait, this is amazing. And then I had this total epiphany. Like, I love it when that happens. But do you feel about the differences in expressive harmonies in, say, your older albums and your newer live sets? Is it a more minimalist or maximalist approach? It's neither minimalist or maximalist. It's just a different... I got bored with keyboards, is what it is. You know, but for lots of other reasons connected to the bottleneck of note length information within electronic music. I think keyboards were never the right choice of input instrument for electronic music. They were never the right choice, but we stuck with it now. I don't know what the right choice would have been either. Can't say string instruments because we just don't have that kind of technology. So, but it should have probably been something other than the piano, you know. And yeah, I mean, You know, because I didn't learn about modes for a long time. I used to do a thing with back in the day. So I'd like transpose the channel that I was writing my melody with to some arbitrary number, and then find that, and then just play the white keys, right? So, and I didn't know that was what I was. I didn't know that that was just choosing a mode and working in that. I didn't know that's what that was, but I could feel that it sounded familiar and right in some odd way. And so there are elements of that thinking that I've maintained to this day because they sort of make some sort of sense. And even in the rig, I have something that counts the intervals, right? So I have the 5 numbers, the 6 numbers, with the intervals counted, and so I can see which type of mode I'm using, if I'm using one of those more consonant original 7, or if I'm using some fucking weird one. And I have a thing that tells me what mode I might be using. If I'm using any of the scales, I have a list of all the possible scales. So yeah, it's kind of, and it tries to tell me if I just select notes arbitrarily, it tries to find if that is an existing mode or a scale, so that I have some context for what I'm doing.